Ever since that PlayStation Showcase has completed, Marvel Spider-Man 2 continues to get a pretty steady stream of exciting news on a regular basis, which is absolutely awesome to hear. Whether it be the interview that was completed with Eurogamer in Europe, Famitsu Magazine in Japan, Press Start in Australia, or IGN themselves in the US, the news has been worldwide and it has been quite significant. And in order to get everything rounded up quite conveniently for all of you guys in one giant video so that you don't have to go searching and trying to piece all of these together through a plethora of tiny videos, I've gone ahead and accumulated everything together into one giant everything you need to know so far for Marvel Spider-Man 2. So let's begin at the beginning, and that is the platform of release. Marvel Spider-Man 2 will not be releasing on any other platform except for the PlayStation 5. This means if you're a PS4 player, unfortunately, you will indeed need to make the upgrade to a PS5 if you're planning to play Marvel Spider-Man 2. And yes, I do want to acknowledge that there has been a very recent trend for PlayStation to release their games on PC after a few years of release. So we have seen that with a lot of their AAA titles, and I would not be surprised if Marvel Spider-Man 2 releases on PC. However, not anytime soon. At the time of the recording of this video, the current release schedule for Marvel Spider-Man 2 is fall of 2023, so that would mean either September, October, or November of fall 2023. Even though the voice of Miles Morales, Nadji Jeter, has hinted at the fact that the game would possibly have co-op, in fact, going as far as to say that it would.
So, is Spider-Man 2 co-op?
I believe it has been. I think it has been announced. I think, I don't know if it's been announced or not, but I think so.
As of right now, Insomniac has come out and said specifically on multiple occasions that Marvel Spider-Man 2 is a single-player title. However, keep in mind that they have also gone ahead and confirmed that we will be playing as different Spider-Mans. Currently, we know from the gameplay trailers revealed, Peter Parker and Miles Morales will both be playable and have a lot of interesting elements to them. So first and foremost, each one of the characters sports their own skill tree. In fact, there will be 3 total skill trees in the game. One that will be shared between Miles and Pete, and then each one of the different Spideys will have their own skill tree to make each Spider-Man feel unique. Insomniac actually clarified and said that the goal here is to create a bit of familiarity between the two Spider-Mans so that you don't feel like you're completely lost when you're transferring from Pete to Miles and vice versa, but then at the same time still make each one of them feel unique compared to one another by giving them their one unique skill tree that applies just to that individual character. In fact, some of those unique special moves have already been showcased in the gameplay showcase. So for Miles Morales, we received the Thunder Burst and the Chain Lightning, while Pete has exemplified some of his symbiote abilities in the form of the Symbiote Punch and the Symbiote Strike. We also know of this move, but we don't currently have a name for this one. And speaking of those differences between Peter and Miles, there will actually be exclusive content for each one of our Spider-Men. That means that there will be missions that you need to tackle as Peter Parker, and there will be missions that will be tackled by Miles instead. I think that that's a really cool idea because it lets us have a little bit of time with each one of the Spider-Mans where they will get to shine on their own in circumstance that applies for their specific character. But worry not, there will also be content that you get to choose whom you would like to play as during those sections. And they also clarified that when it comes to the story itself, the limitation of switching from Pete and Miles will be much more restricted. They will kind of guide you and tell you specifically who they want you to play as during the main story. But fear not, you will have plenty of freedom when it comes to the hub world or the open world, because in the open world, you can pick and choose how you'd like to traverse and whom you'd like to play as, whether it be Pete or Miles. And speaking of that switching mechanic has been powered up by the PlayStation 5 SSD. And during the Marvel's Spider-Man 2 gameplay trailer, we actually saw just how quickly you were able to transform from Pete to Miles. It was almost instantaneous, which is very, very exciting. And speaking of the open world, it is going to be ginormous. In fact, we got a confirmation that the overall open world, or the overall map, will be roughly twice as large as Marvel's Spider-Man 1 and Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. So that is going to be ginormous. Some of the ways that they are going to be accomplishing this is by introducing some of the new boroughs that were not present in the previous Spider-Man games. So, of course, we had Manhattan before, but now they will be adding Queens and Brooklyn, as well as the iconic East River, where, in fact, during the Famitsu interview, we heard that there was going to be an unexpected situation that they have never done before taking place on that said river. Now, upon hearing that, you're probably thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, how am I going to get across all of this terrain? There is a lot to cover. Well, fear not. They actually introduced two brand new traversal methods to this title. The first one of which is going to be the Super Slingshot, and the second one is actually the Wing Suit, which is very, very cool, allowing you to glide or essentially kind of emulate almost flight through New York, and you can gather boosts from wind tunnels that will boost you to go even faster and further so that you can traverse the environments at your leisure. And traversal mechanics is not the only thing that Pete and Miles will be sharing, because as I mentioned before, some of their gadgets are shared as well. In fact, we got two brand new gadgets introduced during the gameplay trailer, which was the web line, allowing you to cast webs as you see fit in order to make things like stealth and stealthy gameplay a lot easier to do, so that you can traverse easier in environments where there might not be something to hold on to or walk on. And then you have the much more aggressive web grabber, which pretty much helps you out in environments where there are a group of enemies that you need to defeat altogether. Another thing that you've probably noticed from just the overall tone of Marvel's Spider-Man 2 so far is that they are definitely going for a much darker and more serious story. That is obviously evident, but if you needed to hear it from Insomniac themselves, Brian Intihar himself said that this will be a much darker game in tone than both Marvel's Spider-Man and Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. I love that he actually goes out of his way to discuss how the story will be darker predominantly because of the symbiote suit and what it brings to the table. Both him and Yuri Lowenthal, the voice of Peter Parker, have talked about how they're going to use the symbiote suit to represent almost factors of addiction and talk about that sort of topic and inspire that sort of theme when it comes to Peter Parker and his relationship with the symbiote suit. And those symbiote elements, they are going to be quite prevalent through and through, because it's not going to be just the story that gets affected, but it will be the gameplay as well. Because I love that Brian Intihar went ahead and said this to IGN, saying that when you use Peter's finishing a move abilities as symbiote Peter Parker, the moves are much more, quote, aggressive and borderline brutal. Yeah, you think? In fact, some people were saying that they are somewhat concerned by the fact that there was simply too much shown. But here's what Yuri Lowenthal had to say to that.
You saw the gameplay drop. Some of you said, oh, they showed too much. I assure you, you have seen nothing yet. It is... we've just scratched the surface. It is just the thwip of the Spider-Berg.
In fact, Brian Intihar, the creative director for the game, went ahead and expanded even further, letting us know that they have not shown us everything when it comes to the visuals for the suit from that gameplay reveal. It's a blend of really wanting to have that familiarity, you know, of being the black and white spider symbol, but at the same time add elements to it, some expected, some not, and some yet to be revealed. This obviously leaves this to be a quite mysterious element still, as far as what kind of a development will we actually see for the symbiote suit when it comes to Marvel Spider-Man 2. The interview with Australia's Press Start also gives us a really interesting piece of information, because we got a confirmation of when Marvel Spider-Man 2 takes place, or at least roughly so. because we got the confirmation that Marvel's Spider-Man 2 picks up about 10 months after the events of Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, which is really cool to know because it gives us a bit more context as to how long have Peter and Miles been working together as New York Spider-Men. Hence why they have really cool team-up moves like we saw in Marvel Spider-Man 2's gameplay trailer.
Alley-oop on 3. Punt. 1, 2, 3. Alley.
Next, let's talk villains, because obviously a hero is only as good as his foes, and there are a lot of foes that will be returning and brand new foes that will be appearing in Marvel's Spider-Man 2 in some way, shape, or form. So some of these were confirmed outright because we actually see them in the trailer. So I'm talking about the first trailer confirming Venom, of course, and the second trailer confirming Kraven the Hunter, as well as the Lizard. But those of you that are keen-eyed have probably picked up on the fact that there were a lot of other villains that were teased in the Kraven the Hunter reveal trailer, because when he takes a look at that iPad-looking device, we see that he is very impressed and intrigued by how many possible targets he has to hunt in New York City. And it is during that sequence that we see some other villains like Wraith, who is, of course, at least in the comics, Yuri Watanabe. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of a role she plays in the story and how extreme will they go with the Wraith character. We also see the returning Shocker, or should I say Taskmaster will be returning. Same thing goes for Tombstone, the Black Cat, the Prowler. And from that same scene, we know that currently, at least at the raft, are also housed the Vulture, Rhino, Doc Ock, Electro, and Kingpin. And the final thing I wanted to discuss was actually on the gameplay side of things, because it does seem like we have some new abilities to enjoy, like the side-to-side yanks of enemies. The ability to do that dodge under move that was so popular in Marvel Spider-Man and Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, which you would utilize in order to get around enemies and be able to send them into the air. Well, guess what? Now you can actually do that same dodge around or dodge under move while actually in the air. In the previous Spider-Man titles, the only tool that we had for defenses was actually our dodge or perfect dodge. In this one, they will actually be introducing the parry ability, which seems like it will be quite handy and will create a lot of interesting scenarios in the combat situations because you have to parry certain attacks. And finally, I really love the implementation of what looks like I would describe as like environmental finishing maneuvers that were not present before. Most of the finishing maneuvers that you would do in the previous game were kind of happening regardless of what was going on around you, sometimes making for some goofy moments. It looks like now there will actually be finishing moves that will somewhat interact with the environment around you and what is actually happening around you as you're performing the maneuver. So there you have it, guys. Everything you need to know in one giant video. This discusses everything from the trailer. This discusses all the stuff that came out from the following interviews that were done by the folks at Insomniac. I hope you guys enjoyed the very in-depth video. If you did, please hit the thumbs up button. Make sure that you're subscribed to stay tuned and up to date with any and all Marvel Spider-Man 2 news. And don't forget that the Summer Games Fest is coming up, where who knows, maybe, just maybe, we see another appearance from our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. If you guys enjoyed the video, I also do have another video discussing my opinion on the theory of Peter Parker becoming Venom. So if you'd like to check out that video, click the link you're seeing right now.